Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. I am joined today by Irlianna Samsara. Did I say that correctly?
Hello. Yes, Samsara actually, but
Samsara. Okay.
very, very, very good.
Irlianna. So, Irlianna is an evolutionary astrologer. She's a traditional astrologer. She has studied with some wonderful people, and she's here today to talk to us about the nodes in the sky, the transiting nodes shifting from the Libra Aries axis into the Pisces and Virgo axis, and what that means for all of us for the coming year. The nodes switch about every 18 months or so. So, yeah, let's talk about it. Welcome, Irlianna.
Oh, yes. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, and I should mention that Irlianna is available for consultations. She has courses and our webinars, and she also has her own YouTube channel. So all that information will be below in the description. So let's talk about this. What's going
Yeah.
on? You want to talk, you set the stage and say, as of today, where we are versus where we will be next week. The official switch is January 11th. Is that correct? January 11th.
Yes. I actually have the chart pulled up if you want me to put it on the screen, or we can just talk about it without it
Let's
being on
just
the
talk
screen.
about it. Let's just talk about it. Unless you'd like to share it, in which case I can give you sharing privileges.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we can just chat first.
All
Um,
right.
so, I mean, our hair is just so beautiful. We just have to be on
That's
camera.
right. People want to see our faces. So
One
a lot of
video.
the people that watch my channel are not super astrology, technological. Like what they like about this channel is that we kind of break it down into plain English. So,
Yes,
um,
yes,
so yeah,
me
let's
too.
break.
I add humor too when possible. Let's face it, we could all use some of this
Yeah,
right now.
there's a lot going on right now. So yeah, so let's talk about the nodes right now have been in Libra and Aries. And so the south node transiting in the sky has been in the sign of Libra, and the north node has been in Aries. So what's your read on that? How do you feel like that has played into the current astrological energy for the past year and a half or so?
Okay, well, yes, thank you. Yeah, of course, we're going to put this context of what this shift is, where we've been and where we're heading. The North Node, I think the greatest gift that these eclipses have given us with the nodal transits is for us to be, especially women, but really all of us, to be uniquely and authentically ourselves. And if that means having to leave behind people and toxic relationships that have been toxic, that don't support us being authentically us, then it was time to let them go. I'm getting chills as I'm saying this, so I guess I always do, right? So so it can be sad and painful, but the good news is that it is bringing us, we're moving into this place of realness and taking steps and being brave, the braveness and the courage to be ourselves. That is what benefits the planet. When we're people go, well, how do we change the world? It's like you be you. Be uniquely you, and don't worry about trying to. I think of, if you could have like June Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver with like a red line through it, like no more of this over accommodating, being the welcome mat. Oh, peace at all costs. This is what this journey has given us, and to not have to be nice about it. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to explain why you're being authentic. So that I feel was like one of the biggest things. And I'll say one other thing. I all props to Andrea Michelle from Astrology Hub. I had her on my podcast about a year ago. She gave an incredible delineation about the fact that, of course, the North Node in Aries ruled by Mars, and she talked about Mars being the head. And when you think about the brain too, it's like there are three parts of the brain. There's the mammalian brain, the reptilian brain, and the neocortex. And she said that this is more like bringing in, we've had to be survivors in this crazy world, right? So we've been so much about survival, and the mammalian part of the brain has been like could say subjugated is the word that comes to me. So this is about bringing that online, the mammalian brain, the caring part of ourselves that nurtures. And isn't it interesting, Dabney, that now as the nodes are changing and moving into Pisces Virgo, Mars happens to be retrograde in Cancer, and it's considered in traditional astrology in its fall, which doesn't, it's not bad. It just means that it's not where it likes to be. So we are all learning to incorporate care and compassion into ourselves, using our intuition, the caring mammalian brain. You know, it's almost like the final message that Mars is giving to us as he hands off like the baton or the passing of the Olympic torch, or however you want to see it, when bringing ourselves, you know, from this place to bringing us forward with the going online very, very deep this year. You know, we must evolve with our emotions, with our vulnerability, and that is what it's pointing us to. I feel like that was Mars's final message, is like, look, stop fighting and start caring.
Yeah. So you brought up a good point, which is that the eclipses that we experienced in the past year, the eclipses go hand in hand with where the nodes are. And so we experienced, lunar and solar eclipses that were paired with that Aries Libra nodes. And so this year, as we move into it, we're going to be getting Virgo and Pisces eclipses. So let's talk a little bit about moving into beginning, just in a few days, or depending on when I put this out. We're here. We're in the Virgo Pisces axis. So let's talk about what is the Virgo South Node about, and what is the promise of the
Sure.
Virgo or the Pisces North Node.
Okay, just so you know that to be specific, it's going to be January 11th, 2025. So whenever you happen to be watching this video, January 11th, I set a chart for Washington, D.C. because I'm an American. It's 6:03 p.m. D.C. in D.C.,
Okay,
and that is exactly when it will be for the Eastern time zone.
great.
And that'll be going through into the spring of next year. So the actual first Pisces Virgo eclipse, sometimes the eclipses are jump ahead of the nodes. They don't always travel together. And we started our first Pisces Virgo eclipse axis in September of last year, September in 2024. So by March of 2026, it will have completed its little dance. But to answer your question, yes, this is a very interesting, this is not just any old nodal shift. They're always important, but this one is going over, we're at zero right now as we speak, we're at 0 degrees Libra, Aries, South Node, North Node. The 0 degree is, of course, the Aries point. So this is a very important point about evolution. Where are we headed? We are moving from, what comes to me is head to heart. And the nodal ingress at 29 degrees, 59 minutes, Pisces, there's a fixed star there called Sheet. I don't know. Do you ever work with fixed stars? I very, 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 very little, but this one
Very
is,
little. Like I've done some studying with Anne Ortley, who does a lot with fixed stars, but that was not my primary, focus. So I don't really do that in readings or anything like that. But I find it fascinating.
yeah, it's really fascinating. So there's a star called Sheet, Scheat, if you guys are interested in looking that up. But I have to just say, I always say this to my clients whenever I see somebody who has a prominent placement with Sheet. I said, look, you can delve in and read these things, but I just want you to be careful because with fixed stars, they tend to have these very kind of fatalistic interpretations. And I said, I don't want you to get scared,
Right.
but this one is often associated, and there's many positive aspects to this too, and I will explain both because what I want to do today, Dabney, is really, like I was saying to you earlier, I want to give people hope. There's a lot that is coming online that to some people might seem, oh, uncertain and scary, but there is a mystical element that is going to be coming to the fore, and I find that really exciting, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So as the nodes crossover to 29 degrees. And of course, just to remind everybody, if you don't know, nodes go backwards in degrees. So it doesn't go from 0 to 29. It goes from 29 to 0. So the nodal ingress, 29 degrees, 59 minutes, that is very close to the fixed star sheet. And that is often associated with misfortune, with accidents, with drownings, with, things of that nature, catastrophic things. Well, oh my goodness, here it is, right? In California, in LA, people are running for their lives. We've all been hearing the reports at this time of this particular recording. So, that is one example. However, there is also the side of sheet can also be about witnessing and having this huge well of compassion that pours out over such unfortunate situations. And so we get the chance to cultivate this and to become aware of it. And as the nodes begin that journey, this next year and a half, again, the importance of this compassion and the feeling of vulnerability in a world right now that looks like this is the last thing I want to be right now is vulnerable. I already feel vulnerable. I'm not comfortable with it. But it is really, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, it is really our greatest strength. There is something that is available to us that emerges when we are in that place, and it comes from a very deep mystical dimension. So I just wanted to share that as we start this journey, yes, sheet will color it, but sheet has some very positive things, again, not to scare anybody, because there are some very positive things. And one of them would be the ability to be present and to be there for people. Kind of like, think of Florence Nightingale or Clara Barton in Civil War, being able to assist people who are really, 29, 59 Pisces. It doesn't get more marginalized than that. People have been shut out and hurting. There's a lot of hurt right now. We have suicide at like major, huge numbers of people. And this has come to the mental health, physical health, but certainly mental health. This is a really big crisis, and this is going to be addressed. And I feel like what the nodes are going to teach us in these eclipses as we go through the nodes in the next year and a half is this incredible amount of there is a shift. It's like, yes, you have to take care of your health. Health is a huge piece. Our healthcare system, how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of others in the collective. We've got Medicare was in Saturn was in Pisces. Saturn is also a big part of this journey, right? Being in Pisces, Neptune as well. And so Saturn, we're in like the second Saturn return from Medicare. So you're going to be seeing in the collective huge shifts. But what I want to emphasize is really this ability to move into those more mystical dimensions that are South Node Virgo. Let go of having to have everything orderly and figured out in your mind. Like we can almost get into analysis paralysis about our health, like hypochondria, right? And it's about trusting the divine. There are non-linear, there are ancestors and guides and angels or whatever you feel to believe in. There are these unseen forces that are there to assist us. So as much as you see negativity in the world, just know that there are huge oceans full of hope and compassion, and that is what is going to take us across this. This is where we develop ourselves. This is about Saturn and Pisces wants a commitment. This is like a spirit. He wants a commitment to a spiritual discipline. So getting disciplined about and taking it up another notch. I'm already just, no, we can never be, right? We want everything fast, push button, but there's a grace that comes when we put in the work of spiritual practice. And this is what's going to carry us across this tumultuous time. That was a long sentence.
No,
Sorry.
I mean, I think
Hope
it
it's
says
okay.
it beautifully. And, we have all of this sort of masculine yang energy coming online with the Neptune and Saturn going into Aries, Uranus going into Gemini. We're going into air and fire, which is
Right.
so different than where we've been. And so it's really kind of nice that the nodes will be challenging us during this time to get away from being in the mind and spinning out with worry, because that's the shadow of Virgo for sure, is that perfectionism and wanting to control things, like wanting to be able to control things. And the reality is during this time, we're probably not going to be able to control things. And so in the absence of that control, we only have faith. And
Yes.
that
Yes.
and that's really what the higher promise of this transiting nodes is all about. So, somebody had mentioned to me that during, and this is so true, it's like when there is one of these crises, like the fires in California, it's incredible the amount of the neighbors coming together, the community pulling together. Like
Mm.
suddenly it doesn't matter what side of the aisle, your political party, it doesn't, none of that matters anymore. If you're in the middle of a hurricane or a wildfire, it's like,
Yes.
that's my neighbor and like I don't want them to hurt. And that's kind of that compassion you're talking about. And so that it's an unfortunate analogy to kind of say that sometimes these crises have to bring out the best in us. But that is the highest meaning of Pisces, is that universal love, is caring for people, not caring who they voted for, or
Right.
what their beliefs are on gay marriage or whatever. you
Right. Right.
know
Because
so
Saturn in Pisces is saying, you know what? All those beliefs you've had, all these conditioned beliefs of how you think, whether it's government, society, it's like it's all being dissolved. It's like the sand castle and the ocean is just dissolving the sand.
And there's going to be a lot more of that this year. I think we have been in kind of this more um, bifurcated state of, pitted against one another. And I really appreciated that you brought up the healthcare system, because, and then I had, I don't do mundane astrology for things like, oh, it's Medicare's second Saturn return. That's fascinating. Like I had no idea. And so, the South Node in Virgo, health is going to be of the utmost importance. Like we are going to be feeling, this, like, are we sick? Is there a new pandemic? Is there, like, have you thought about kind of the implications of being in that much more like health conscious mind state?
Yeah, that I definitely thank you. You're right where my notes are leading
Okay,
in.
perfect. Let's hear it.
Yeah, this is going to be an outrageous time for natural healing, faith healing. I did a webinar back in on back in September, and it's and people can still purchase if they want. I'll send it to them. I did this amazing webinar about all these specifically the health. A big health was a big piece of this, but anyway, it's the Edgar Casey. If people aren't familiar with Edgar Casey, he was called the Sleeping Prophet, and he was alive in the 1920s and 30s, and I think passed away sometime around World War II. And he was considered the father of holistic medicine at least in this country. And he has the world's largest library in Virginia Beach, Virginia, called the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. And he has thousands of volumes of these of transcripts where he went into a trance and delivered information through what you might say his higher self or whatever, but it was a very incredible, like, healing people from serious diseases, all manner of diseasement, even mortal disease, just amazing confirmation and information on things. He also talked about Atlantis. He talked about there's a book, Edgar Casey, on Atlantis, so if you're interested you could look that up, but very much a mystic. Of course, Pisces, Virgo, very prominent in his chart, as you would imagine. But his chart, even though somebody has passed, dead people's charts get activated. So I looked at his chart and I'm like, dang, these eclipses are activating Edgar Casey's chart. So again, that push toward natural healing, being aware of the of there are dangers and there are things that we're learning, facts that are coming to the surface about, say, pharmaceutical drugs and things that sometimes it's important. There are things you got to take that'll save your life. Not dissing them all, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, but having a discernment, having faith in your intuitive knowing that something's right, whether to take this kind of drug or that kind of medicine, to develop that knowingness. But I will say, with Edgar Casey's chart being activated, that to me speaks of another resurgence, as it did in the late 60s with the health food stores, coming online. I don't have I don't remember exactly what nodes were in that time period, but for sure that's another flowering of the of health food, health movements, herbal medicine. You think about Virgo, South Node Virgo, we're reconnecting with these the ways of nature. So his was one, Edgar Casey's. Another one whose chart, to me, again, sings of this was a mystic in the medieval Catholic Church called Hildegard van Bingen. And she was actually made a doctor of the church by Pope whomever about 12 years ago, Pope John Paul, or the one before. Anyway, get my popes mixed up, sorry. Anyway, it was considered a saint and a mystic. And she had enormous effect. I mean, she's just an amazing woman that wrote all these books. She suffered greatly, very Neptune conversation there, right? Suffering greatly, but had mystical visions. And she said she was bathed in this divine white light when she would get these visions and get information. She wrote books about health and healing and nature and natural herbs, as well as so in understanding that the earth is connected to us and our health depends on how connected are we to the earth, and vice versa. How connected is the earth to us? Are we disconnected from each other, and our taking care of the earth is also taking care of us? So I think we're going to see that too very strongly in
Well, I would
this.
definitely like to see more compassion in healthcare. That's for sure. That's, definitely the promise, and something I hope does transpire. I'm not super optimistic at this moment, but we will see. Maybe there is kind of a reckoning coming, and there's a change in, because obviously what is happening now isn't working for anybody in this country.
Yeah, and I think it is definitely, Dabney, coming online because I'm just thinking, okay, I'll tell you something. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for a miraculous healing. And that has to do with my mother. When my mother was 7 years old, she had a mastoid infection behind the bone behind the ear, and it got very spongy and it got her, she was very sick and extremely sick, had to go to the hospital. She ended up losing a year in school. She was like, had to repeat a grade, right? Because it was that big of a thing. And she was actually within hours of death. And and I think again, we're going to start hearing miraculous stories of healing in these Pisces Virgo, this lunar journey, the lunar node journey that we're about to undertake. But here's an example. She was within hours of death, and my grandmother, very Catholic family, very devout. My grandmother's very devout Catholic to the day she died. And she prayed, and in Catholicism, there's these set of traditional Catholicism, there's prayers called a novena, and it comes from the Latin word nove for nine. So you say these prayers for 9 days. And my mother was almost like comatose, right? And the doctors told my grandmother, look, you better basically call the funeral home. It's like it's over for her, and you just gotta get that she's not going to survive, and you better make your arrangements. And my grandmother, tough woman, she was like, she wasn't having it. So she took out her novena and she prayed to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. It's the aspect of Mother Mary. And she prayed and prayed and prayed and did the novena. And my mother, it was like literally overnight. When they looked to see the white blood cells, there were like hardly any in the microscopic, looking on light, right? And there was like it was like, this is, you're done, right? But the next day, it was like literally overnight. They were all there. Her health was restored. And she actually, her case was written into what they call the miracle books at the hospital. They kept a book called Miracle Books. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So here's part of my message is, we're, as much as there is this devastation and suffering in the world, there is that mystical component of compassion, believing in something that you can't see. Like you tell the doctor's like, wait a minute, with my mother, what happened, right? They had all their Virgo, health figured out. And then this thing steps in. It's like, well, how'd that happen? And that defies the logical mind. So that is a hugely great example of the kind of faith healings and things that are available, that have always been available. But now is the time that the universe is saying to us, yeah, you know what? You got to lean into that. You got to lean into faith.
Yeah, the power of prayer, the power of meditation, the power of connecting to something larger than ourselves, because as things maybe feel out of control, I mean, that's Virgo South Node, is wanting to feel in control, wanting to
Control.
feel that we've got things, our ducks are in a row, our lists are made, we're crossing things off. And the
Right.
reality is, like, this may not be a time where we can control things. And so in the absence of that, the challenge is to go to sit on the meditation cushion, to pray, to watch inspirational videos on YouTube, things that will give you some sense of faith and hope again, because that is what's happening simultaneously with all these big changes that are going to potentially usher in some chaotic. I think when we're in 2026, we're all going to have a much bigger, better sense of what all this energy means in our personal lives, in the collective. But right now, we're still like in the dark, feeling our way around. It's like we've got
Right.
Pluto went into Aquarius, but we're still feeling, the older energies we've been dealing with for so long. Since 2018, we've had Uranus and Taurus. We've had Neptune since I think 2011, we've had Neptune in Pisces. So
Mhm.
we're finishing up this giant cycle. And one of the other things that I wanted to just sort of bring into this, that you'd mentioned, that is one of my teachers, Anne Ortley, talks about a resetting of your draconic chart, which is that 0 Aries that you mentioned, which is also on January 11th, which, prior to it going into Pisces, we get this kind of karmic reset for everyone. And it
Mm.
happens, I think, every 12 years. And so looking back, what was going on for you 12 years ago? This is kind of the planetary karmic reset. And so it's like another one of these kind of flip over energies, like another thing where we're like feeling destabilized, right? As somebody
Right.
with a South Node in the 6th house, I feel incredibly destabilized these days myself. And so I'm having to really focus on the higher vision, which is there's something bigger going on. We can't control this. And so that's kind of the thing that I want everyone to focus on. And also, you can look, if you know anything about astrology, look at where 0 Aries is in your personal chart. What house
Right.
is it in? That's going to give you information about where this reset takes place for you, where you're energized, where you're going to get a little bit more juice, and where there is a challenge for you to kind of individuate and come into your own over this next 12-year cycle. So,
And, and it's so interesting this time because we have Saturn and Neptune. We over that Aries point, we had Saturn, first Neptune in May. Sorry, March.
right,
Saturn
right.
in May, like Memorial Day weekend. And then Venus is going to retrograde, of course, back into Aries, back over that point, and then again. So we have three. That's amazing. Of course, we know Venus retrogrades only every year and a half. So it's not like Mercury. It's a big deal when Venus retrogrades. So Neptune, Saturn, Venus retrograde going over that Aries point. Yeah, you talk about a new beginning. But what I find really, here's another really fascinating thing I found, Dabney, that I want to share with you and your audience. I've been practicing yoga for like 30, I don't know how many years. oh, since I was a baby, 34 years. I was an infant. No, so 1991, so what's that, 34 years, I get, yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to share was it's something from yoga, wisdom, and philosophy, and it has to do with the Saturn, Neptune, Aries. Now, you probably have heard, and many astrologers have talked about the fact that when Neptune is only comes through, this sign, it completes its cycle every 164 years. So we haven't had that since. Guess when it first entered was April of 1861. So, of course, we all know our American history, the beginning of the Civil War. Now, does that mean we're going to go through that again? No, it doesn't necessarily, hopefully not. I think perhaps the war that we might be seeing is like a war on information of what we let into ourselves and what it's air, it's the age of air, so it's not heavy, right? But I will say that, I mean, look, can't sugarcoat it either. Yes, conflict, there could be that kind of conflict. But as that was happening in 1861, there was something else happening on the other side of the world in a little place called Raniket, India, in the foothills of the Himalayas. So I'm going to tell you this little story because it's going to illustrate these two sides that, yes, it can look like this devastation and war, and especially Saturn is not happy in the sign of Aries. It's in its fall as well. So that's another, on that level, it can be
It's grouchy.
challenging. What was that?
It's grouchy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't want fire. I want cold and lonely, But the Saturn Neptune conjunction, though, what happened was, if anybody follows yoga or is familiar with the autobiography of a yogi, which was a great book, it's one of the great spiritual books of the 20th century, written by Paramahansa Yogananda. And he brought yoga to the United States. He was the one who came to USA 100 years ago, came to LA. Great, go to the SRF Center. It's amazing. It's in Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles proper. And anyway, but in one of the chapters of the books, he talks about his guru's guru, which was Lahiri Mahasaya, and he was alive in the 1860s. And he was an accountant for a railway company. He had a wife and kids, and he was an account. He worked for the railroad, right? But he was devout. He was a Hindu. He's devout. He'd had his prayers. He was very, spiritual, good spiritual practice, day job. One day he feels, you know what? I feel like I need to. He was feeling some kind of call, and as luck would have it, his supervisor transferred him to this little town in the foothills of the Himalayas. So he's going for a walk out in the meadow, and he sees this man who appears to him, and he said, "Here, come follow me." And it turns out that this was Mahavatar Babaji. Mahavatar Babaji is considered he's considered, according to Yogananda, the Yogi Christ of India. So he is this, also known as a deathless guru, totally about immortality. He manifests a body. He has stayed on the earth plane for like hundreds of years. Complete divinity, right? Mahavatar means great avatar. He appears to Lahiri, and he says, "I'm here to initiate you in Kriya Yoga," which is a specific technique in yoga. He manifested a palace of light, crystalline light, and all of these masters of light joined Babaji and initiated over, like, I don't know, 10 days. Lahiri went missing. For 10 days, he was in this altered, incredible dimension, right? Receiving these teachings. Of course, the bliss, he didn't have to eat or sleep. It was just this other world, right? Coming down into the earth plane. And when it was over, well, he basically said, "Oh, I'm going to just stay here forever." And they're like, "Sorry, Lahiri, you can't. You got to go." No, I can't leave it. You have to go because what you are seeding is you have to pass that on to, the lineage, right? And then disseminate it. Of course, it went to Yukteswar, then it went to Yogananda, and Yogananda brought it to the West. And of course, here we are, right? So you can see it's all from this one man's devotion, and what an impact for generations of people. So when I say it's worth it to develop a spiritual practice at this time, like, yeah, because Neptune was at the same early, just entered Aries when this happened. I went back and I even put a chart together. So Neptune and Aries, this descent from divine invisible realms into Aries, the physical body. And Saturn is there to say, yeah, let's make it real. Mortality, immortality. You think you know who you are? You think you're just this meat suit? Well, has Saturn and Neptune got a story for you? You know? So
Yeah, and this has
again,
been a time probably for while Neptune has been in Pisces and then more recently Saturn in Pisces, where we probably have been receiving more downloads, even if we haven't integrated it, even if we don't understand it yet. And maybe that is that crossing into Aries helps bring that into our consciousness, instead of being
yes.
lost in, you know, confusion and delusion and not really knowing what some of these really more powerful downloads mean. Well, so it sounds like I really think that it sounds like this is a time that trust, spiritual devotion, taking your spiritual practice, your faith to the next level, um,
Yep.
but a compassionate faith, not a
Uh,
judging. It's not the faith of Sag, where it's kind of more religion. It's more about actual compassion, universal love, and faith. And helping your fellow man, helping the universe is where we're supposed to go. Get out of the head and into the heart. Get out of perfection and step into love. That's kind of,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to touch base on?
Yeah, I would just say that the shadow side of that is, with yeah, we definitely have to lean into faith, but we don't, with the South Node, it's not that we just drop the South Node. It's we're going to take the best of the
Got to
South Node,
integrate it, right?
right, integrate it. So it's saying, yes, have faith, but also be discerning. So we have to make sure it's a balance. So
Right,
yes,
because then you're going
discernment.
to join a bunch of cults and you're going to think the world is la la land when, you're not paying your
Right.
IRS
Somebody thinks,
bill.
oh, I'm Jesus, and I'm going, oh, I'm going to follow this person that says he's Jesus incarnate, whatever. It's like you have to, there is that too. So especially around eclipse season, it's always great to see the headlines. Watch, this is what I do. Watch very carefully the headlines that come up because they're very, very juicy with the promise, the pitfalls, but also the promise, the potential of the eclipses and the
Yeah,
eclipse cycle.
really coinciding with the eclipses, Israel is a Libra nation, and all of the things that really set off what we're dealing with now in that part of the world really started on the eclipses. And so we're going to have similar sort of themes with other countries that have powerful Virgo or Pisces energy, or, things that Virgo and Pisces rule. And so to your
Right.
point, Virgo rules health, Virgo rules animals, Virgo rules the things that, hospitals, people like nurses, like it's kind of like more about, taking things and being more exact with them. And it's your
Right.
day-to-day
A
service.
place of service where we work and toil to be in service, humility, virtue,
Right,
all
like
of
the
it.
Red Cross, FEMA,
Right.
those are very Virgo kind of things. And then you've got Pisces, which is, as we've been talking about, is more spirituality, is more faith. But on the downside with Pisces, and you see that less when it's in the North Node. But the things that we have to be careful of, and we still are in a lot of Piscean energy right now, is the kind of escapism and the delusion and addictions and things like that.
Right.
But
Because
I
we
think
get so
that comes
scared that we want to retreat to drugs or alcohol or it
back
could
out.
just be shopping or online, whatever. There's all kinds of addictions. So yeah, it's to be mindful and aware of. If anything, the universe wants us to be addicted to is our beautiful devotional hearts and faith in the divine. Like that's a healthy addiction, it's
Right, exactly. And so that's where,
while
you
being
look at.
grounded.
Right. I mean, honestly, there is this sort of addictive quality with our cell phones, at least for me, and social media and things like that. It's not just me. I know it's a lot of people. And there's where the discernment comes in too, because now a lot of these social media companies are now changing their policies to make things potentially a lot more toxic. And so we do all have to be more discerning to say, I
Very,
don't want to be exposed to that. Like, I want to, what's real? Figuring out what's real and then stepping into a much more compassionate place, finding your tribe of people that, emanate kindness versus emanating criticality. Right. So,
yes,
like, if you're
yes.
seeing a lot of trolling and criticalness, like, that's like a shadow of, I wouldn't say trolls is Virgo shadow, but I would say criticality and just really, why do you feel the need to, even on my own channel, like some people will come on and just say the rudest things, probably in the, in their minds, they might be helping or like, I don't know what they're thinking, but, it's kind of like take a second and think about, is this constructive? Like, are you actually helping someone or are you hurting them with your words? Virgo is ruled by Mercury, words hurt, and thinking about that. So important.
Yeah, especially with Jupiter, with the nodes and Jupiter and Gemini is like watch your language and where can that go? One, I mean, we can all remember some teacher or elder or somebody that scolded us or shamed us when we were a child, and we can still remember that thing.
Right.
We're 9 years old. So our words
Forgiveness.
really carry power.
That's what just came to me is forgiveness. Like, that's a big theme right now. And then with Jupiter going into Cancer, forgiveness will also be a big theme and a big opportunity for us, because a lot of times what we can realize is forgiveness will heal not only the person you're forgiving, but it heals yourself. And so healing, that's the axis of Virgo and Pisces is healing.
Healing. Yeah.
Healing. So if there is a theme for this coming year, it's actually about healing. Even though things may feel really crazy, Virgo is the body and health healing and your mind, healing the mind, through therapy and things like that. But then we've got the spiritual healing, the forgiveness.
Right,
So
spiritual
that's
healing,
kind of
not
that
just physical
access.
healing. Right, like a doctor will just treat just this, oh, take this, prescription and it will do this thing on the physical plane, but it's like, well, what about my soul? What about my spirit? Well, they didn't go to med school for that, but that's why we have shamans, we had Edgar Casey, and we've got
Right. And so there's the discernment. It's like, you might need cancer treatments, but you also might need, treatments for your soul at the same time to help you heal from all of the toxicity that you've ingested over a lifetime. Or, there could be something in the fact that you want to start eating organic food, and that's okay. That's a good thing. But, at the same time, you still may need the cancer therapy. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, kind of just really trust, like you said,
trust your gut.
gut, and like really trust your instincts, intuition, and, connect into something higher. Well, this is fascinating. Yeah.
What I wanted to say is one, if I could put it into one phrase, this particular is actually my yoga teacher said this the other day in class. I have yet to tell her this, but I think she's going to watch this podcast because I'm going to tell her to. But she said something, and as soon as I heard it, I'm like, bingo! This is the Pisces Virgo eclipses. People are speaking it. It's everywhere. But I would say devotion in motion.
Oh,
Isn't
there
that
we
neat?
go.
Especially with Saturn and conjunct Neptune and Aries coming up, devotion and motion.
Yeah, motion. Aries is motion. It's like
Get it
things are
done.
going, things are accelerating, but then, yeah, your devotion, like your faith, this is the opportunity you're being given. Get out of the mind, get into the heart, get out of perfectionism, expecting to be able to control things, get into love, forgiveness. That's what we got to do. There's the devotion. Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
stop talking about it and do it.
That's
Saturn's like,
right.
go, let's do it.
Shout out to Irlianna's yoga teacher. Hi,
Yay!
everyone. Okay. Thank you so much for breaking down this energy for us. I do think that there's so much potential here, and I'm glad that the universe is giving this to us right now because we need something to help balance some of the really big changes that are coming. And I think that's part of the softening that we're going to get is a little bit of this Pisces. So check out Irlianna's website. I will put all that information below. And as always, the universe is conspiring to help us. There's a reason and a season for it all. I still have my course available. So sign up for that. I'll put a link below. And yeah, check it all out. Happy New Year again, everyone. Bye.
Bye.